Hello and welcome to Big Deal. I'm Nisha Poddar. Now on Big Deal today, we will discuss the lead contamination in India, and the corporate world wakes up to its hazards and also weaves in solutions as part of their ESG agenda. Now remember that car batteries are the biggest consumers of lead, and recycling batteries is one of the big causes of lead contamination among some of the other sources of lead exposure in children. Now, let's get started with our expert panel to understand this particular issue and the solutions at work currently. Let me welcome on the show Richard Fuller, who's from Pure Earth, Harsha Gourinein, I beg your pardon, from Amara Raja, as well as we have Navin Prakash Sharma from Gravita India. Welcome, gentlemen, to CNBC-TV18. Now, Richard, let me begin with you because Pure Earth has done a lot of study across the globe on the lead emission and even helped countries find solutions. What's the magnitude of lead contamination problem in India?
The level is really extraordinary in India. And I think it's extraordinary for a couple of reasons. One is we thought we'd gotten rid of lead when we took it out of gasoline in 2000, but now we're finding it's here from car batteries, from contaminated spices, from cookware, and in paint as well. So it's like this thing has come back, but the impact, I think, is really extraordinary. And a recent study with CSIR and another study with UNICEF, we find that half of the children in India are currently lead poisoned with elevated blood lead levels. And that means they've got some level of brain damage to their frontal cortexes, which means they have reduced intelligence, and they also have reduced educational outcomes. It's an extraordinary impact.
Right, that's a big one that you're really highlighting, Richard. When it comes to lead contamination in children, 50%, that's a huge number. Harsha, let me bring you into the discussion. As a battery manufacturer, what do you think can be done, and where does India stand at the moment in this respect? What is Amara Raja really doing?
So Nisha, just to set the context, lead acid batteries are the most recycled products in the world. They're not only fully recyclable, almost 99% is recovered, but the recyclability is also progressively getting enhanced. Now, as manufacturers, we are making sure that we source our lead from certified eco-friendly smelters, and that we are continuing to up our own collections. Our targets are being set both internally, and recently the BWMR rules are also stating over the next few years how those collection targets will scale up. So we will need to ensure that the batteries are coming back to the manufacturer and going through organized channels for safe and effective recycling.
Right, so effective recycling, and that has a large unorganized area. Let me take it to lead manufacturer then, Navin from Gravita. What do you think is being done at the moment, and how big is the unorganized sector where unsafe recycling of batteries is really taking place? You're on mute, Navin.
The battery which are collected from the post-consumer are not getting recycled through formal recyclers, while the battery which are coming from the institutional or industry, they are coming to formal recycling. So as of now, the estimate is that almost 50% recycling in the country is happening either in informal recycling or not with eco-friendly recycling, we can say.
Right. So, Navin, what is the impact on the business if we have to take the cost of compliance to safety standards? And are there standards already put in place by our government?
Yes. See, the compliance starts from the beginning, where as a consumer, we return our old battery to the dealer. So these dealers are placed at millions of places across the country, and these batteries are being drained there itself. So the acid is going to the our rivers or our nala or our landfill. So entire area is getting contaminated. So these battery, until unless these comes to the recycler or to the manufacturer, this problem will not get solved. To overcome this, Ministry of Environment and Forest has already framed certain regulations which were known as DMHR 2001. And of late, during the budget speech of our Honorable Finance Minister, it was mentioned that some of the areas of circular economy will be taken care where we'll integrate the informal sector, we'll put technology, we'll put system, we'll create public regulations and guidelines for such recycling. So under the same guidelines, there is one new area, a new regulation has come up on recent month in August 2022, known as Battery Waste Management Rule.
Yes.
And these rules have certain responsibility given to producers, recyclers, and refurbishers. So we hope with the implementation of these rules, there will be control on such type of activities.
Right. Harsha, what do you think about the battery waste management guidelines which have been put out by the government?
I think they're a wonderful step in the right direction. And they're giving collection targets for manufacturers, recovery targets for recyclers. So definitely things are outlined well. I do feel that a few enabling policies need to be included as well in order to make sure that the full effectiveness of the BWMR rules come through. For example, my ecosystem colleague Navin had just mentioned that the dealers are very important in this ecosystem. And unless dealers and bulk customers are mandated and also incentivized to return the batteries to the producers, it'll be really hard for the manufacturer to fulfill his extended producer responsibilities.
Right.
The responsibility without the enabling policy or authority will make it very difficult.
Right. So, Richard, you heard some of the industry people who have their skin in the game. I know you had come to India for a visit. I met you then. And then you met the industry stalwarts of the lead industry as well as the government. What is your sense on the understanding of this issue as well as the actions taken so far?
Yes, I was really heartened to see such a good response from the top levels of the battery recycling industry. And they've responded very, very well. I think one thing that we need to add to the equation, there needs to be a minimum standard for an eco-friendly smelter. Currently, you can get a license and be quite dirty. So that needs to stop as well. But Nisha, the other thing I was really heartened, we had a number of meetings with the government of India at different levels and different institutions, and they were also keen to see some positive action on this. It's still a new issue. The level of exposure, the amount of damage that's being caused is new for everyone, but there was a great, strong pickup to really deal with this.
Right. And also give us a sense, Richard, that, Pure Earth has worked in various geographies across the world. What has been a key good solution model for this kind of an issue, which is akin to India, which can be replicated here?
Yeah, the success in dealing with batteries and making sure they're coming back only to clean recyclers usually means a reverse logistics system is in place. And that means that batteries are delivered at one point of the supply chain at the same time as the scrap batteries, the used batteries, are taken back. So a dealer will get 10 new batteries and deliver back 10 old batteries. And similarly, a consumer will turn their battery in when they're buying a new battery. And that system needs to be in place all the way back up the supply chain with the right kinds of controls and measurements going on in order to ensure that the batteries don't leak out and go into these dirty facilities and backyard facilities.
Right. So Lifeline is also funding who will pay and whether it really makes business economics when it comes to the recycling of battery at a much higher standards of safety, and that needs to be standardized as well. But there are a few more aspects that I will bring up. The ESG aspect, the sustainability aspect of lead industry. Who should take the responsibility and burden of safe recycling, and then who's going to fund the cost? We'll talk about all of that when we return on Big Deal right after this short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Big Deal, and we are discussing the impact of lead emission issues in the country and the corporate action on that. Now, we were discussing the issue as well as the gravity of the situation. Harsha, what do you have to say about the ESG side and the sustainability thrust by corporate India? And can lead emission problem be solved for, or at least funded, through this very aspect of the industry?
Nisha, definitely as part of the various ESG criteria that have been discussed both in our industry and also at a national level, lead recycling plays a key role, especially in this industry, given that lead is recovered at that 98-99% rate. And new batteries can largely come off of this circular economy. The only issues here is, yes, we would have to invest heavily into a reverse logistics mechanism, and also the prices in India of what we call desi lead, which is the spot purchase of lead from the domestic market, usually is not equatable to the primary lead sources. That is something that needs to be sorted out, and that's also a cost to compliance. But that being said, as a producer, we're fully committed and capable to be able to increase our usage of recycled lead and ensure that recycled lead is being recycled through, once again, effective and safe means.
Right. So, Navin, taking forward the point that Harsha has been mentioning now and re-emphasizing, now the division between the organized and unorganized recycling of lead is huge. Do you think the government has done something to incentivize organized players, or do you think that the tax system and the GST has really made it even more difficult?
Isha, as of now, there is no specific incentive to the industry for recycling. As in developed nations, a consumer is charged for recycling. Here, consumer is paid for the scrap. And the change in the tax structure post GST, there is a tax of 18% on the used lead acid battery or end of life lead acid batteries, which used to be 5% pre-GST era. So this 18% is a big number, and this is a good incentive for informal sector, who do not have much cost of recycling. The infrastructure cost is very low. Until unless either the cost of GST has been brought to zero or at very low level, 5%, or there is some other mechanism where is the GST has to be paid by the recycler himself, and then recycle can claim the GST. So it will help us to not going most batteries to the informal sector. So industry has also requested ministry to bring this particular scrap under reverse charge mechanism, where recycler pay the tax. So there is no fake billing, no informal sector to come in the picture. But challenge is this particular regulations of waste management comes under Ministry of Environment and Forest, taxation comes under Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Finance, while as a non-ferrous recycler, we fall under Ministry of Mines. So there is a interaction between various governments.
Yes.
So that is the one challenge which we are following up from our association side.
All right. So building that consensus amongst different ministries is also a challenge that this industry faces to address the lead issue problem. Richard, what in your view is the biggest issue, and where can government take that big step?
Yeah, I think we also need to remember that battery recycling, especially improper battery recycling, creates acute toxic hotspots that will poison hundreds, maybe 1,000 children around them. But there is a whole other area of lead exposures going on, mostly in the kitchen. And here we're seeing lead being added to turmeric because lead chromate is a yellow industrial pigment, and it makes it look better and more attractive for sale. And we're also finding lead in pottery and aluminium cookware, which itself also needs to be addressed. So the response from government at a regulatory level to deal with these things that are in everyone's houses, especially the poorest, that also needs to be put into the equation.
All right, so there are several aspects, and what has been your finding when it comes to India in particular? How many sites And how have you cleaned up some of the sites? What has been the mechanism which has worked so far, Richard?
Yeah, these toxic sites have been a focus for us, and we've identified several hundred of them just with a very small study in one state alone. So we think that there are many thousands of them across India. We've also gone in and done a couple of pilot cleanup projects just to show that it can be done inexpensively, and taken an old, abandoned, contaminated site and cleaned it up so that it's safe for the local communities. And we've done that in Bihar and Tamil Nadu and to some success. So that it is possible to go through and fix this particular side of the equation reasonably easily.
Right. So, Harsha, while there are many other aspects, but the biggest emitter of lead and contamination has been the battery industry. Now, the electric vehicle segment is also growing, and that will also require lead battery as they use two types of batteries. What is the onus and the responsibility that the automobile makers can really take in this particular regard, especially because battery is just so critical for the automobile sector?
When it comes to the automobile manufacturers, there's a little bit of there's a lack of clarity when we look at the BWMR rules. Automobile manufacturers would be considered bulk consumers, but it is the first application of the battery in that vehicle's lifetime. So there's no replacement coming up. A lot of the BWMR rules have replacement in mind. So I think some clarity needs to be brought out there. With EVs, like you said, Nisha, there's a battery system that is responsible for the traction of the vehicle. And there are lower voltage requirements also, which largely are being plugged by lead acid battery chemistry at the moment. So where lead acid is clearly there, I think the methods we've discussed will still be relevant. For the lithium battery packs, I know the BWMR rules have specified a longer start date, and there are collection targets that have been proposed, but it's a little too soon to say. I think as the market transforms, I think that clarity will come.
Right. So there is a lack of clarity, and probably that is something that the government can really look into as policy. But standardization, how important is that, Navin, in this context? And what are the most important issues at hand in solving the lead emission issue?
Nisha, basically, the formal recycling in India, over 1,500 recyclers are being given license to operate lead recycling. But more than 90% are not environment friendly because there is no standardization. So industry has already suggested that there should be some minimum capacity, some minimum plant and machinery infrastructure requirement, like minimum capacity of 20,000 ton lead production. All developed countries have very less number of recyclers. If you see Korea, where they recycle equal number of battery with the help of 10 to 12 recyclers, and we are here 1,500. So how can this model be commercially sustainable? It is suggested that with a capacity of 20,000, 25,000 tons per annum recycling capacity, we should now have more than 30, 35 recyclers across the country, so that the Ministry or the Environment Pollution Control Boards can also monitor them. Otherwise, they cannot monitor that big number. This is not only the industry for them to monitor. And when it comes to other batteries, so in this regulation, lithium-ion battery and other batteries are also considered. In BWMR, it was earlier only for lead-acid battery. Now all type of battery are being covered in this. So we hope the automobile sector, other batteries will also be part of this regulation.
All right, the entire industry's action as well as concerted effort is required. Richard, your final thoughts for Pure Earth's plans, action plan for India for the eradication of this contamination, and what do you think is really going to work? And also, I must mention that a lot of private equity industry players have looked at waste management as an area of potential. Is the funding also flowing in this particular space as the awareness grows?
Yeah, there is. It's a very early stages of dealing with this problem in India. Other countries where we're active are further along in in looking at these problems and solving them. I think our role in this as we move forward, we're a technical agency, a nonprofit who has a great deal of technical skills in looking at all of these different exposures to lead and from many, many different countries. So we can bring that expertise to governments, to industry and the rest to help to navigate through as this issue gets more attention and more funding from different sources to be able to solve it. So we're very keen to assist in the communication strategies, in providing the technical resources to deal with managing these problems at a sustainable level. It's going to take several decades, but the benefit from doing this will be enormous for India.
All right, a very, very important issue, and we are just about at a very nascent stage in first identifying this problem and then solving for it. A concerted effort and a lot of funding, as well as giving up some margin from the industry is also required, and an action plan by the government, as well as standardization of the safety norms by the government, as well as the Pollution Control Board, is also the need of the hour. This particular topic is going to increase, it's going to gain momentum in coming times, but we have given or laid out at least the basic problem and where we are at the moment. Thank you so much, Harsha, Navin, as well as Richard, for bringing this important issue to light, which is affecting 50% of the children in the country because of lead contamination. With that, it's a wrap on Big Deal. Thanks so much for tuning in.